Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Joining me for a face-to-face conversation with me today is Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar. General Ravi Shankar, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskar and thanks a lot, Mr. Sree Iyer. It's a nice thing to interact with you face to face.
We have talked with General Ravi Shankar on various topics, and I thought, why not pick something that perhaps we have not covered before, but it's equally important, his interaction with some very leading personalities. And today we're going to talk about two very important people, but before we jump into that, may I request all of you to please like this video, and if you have not subscribed to our channel or Gunner Shot, this is going to be also airing on Gunner Shot. I request you to subscribe to both channels. We both serve different things, and General Ravi Shankar's is very focused and very up to date on a lot of things that you don't want to miss. So General Ravi Shankar, two people that you've worked with that really impressed you, I think. I would like you to start describing this, and I might give in a story here or there, but the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you. What you said, and to all the viewers, the two people who I served with, and who actually very impressed me and left an impression on me and on India, are Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, our previous president, and Mr. Manohar Parrikar, our former Raksha Mantri. Now, I had a lot of interaction with Dr. Abdul Kalam in my formative years. That was a time in around 1998 to 1990 when I was posted in DRDL as the army member on Project Prithvi. I was there. That was the time when the first Prithvi was fired and all that. The integrated guided missile development program had come in. And in those days, Dr. Abdul Kalam was my director of DRDL. And my project director was a very illustrious man called Lieutenant General V.J. Sundaram. He's still alive, 91. And he keeps talking to me once in a while about what I'm doing with the Ramjet projectile. And then, of course, Dr. V.K. Saraswat, who was my deputy project director, who's today member of the Niti Ayog. But I'll stick to Dr. Abdul Kalam. It was 88 when I got posted to DRDL, young major, full of beans. I landed up in this environment where it was only civilians. And so I had to switch into civilian gear. So I shed my uniform for that time. And I started interacting with him. And I still remember the first time he called me over to his office for a formal interview. And we had a chat. He said, "What do you do?" and all that. So I explained to him that I'm an artillery officer, an XYZ, and what my interests were and what my expertise was, and that I had been an instructor by then in School of Artillery and all that. So at the end he said, "Look, I never thought you would know so much about what we are doing here." I said, "Look, that's my bread and butter. Okay, we've been here," and by then I had already had about 12-13 years service. He says, "I think we're in for a good time." But what had happened was that by the time I joined DRDL, the first Prithvi missile had been fired, the first ever in the country. The next missile which was to be fired was the Agni 1. So the whole DRDL was focused on Agni. Now you have to also understand, Agni is nothing but was nothing but a Prithvi mounted on a SLV-3, right? And half of it, the operational part of it was all Prithvi. So he said, "Look, I'm going to put you on Agni, because that way you'll learn and also contribute, because eventually Agni has to see the light of the day, and you get to know many things." So he made me in charge and coordinating the complete Agni program at that time, where I was coordinating for about 36 odd institutions, industry. There were no startups those days, academia and small industry and everything for various things, because what we were trying was something top of the shelf. And I learnt a lot, and I was put on in the Agni directorate. Mr. Arun Agarwal was the project director. They didn't have space for me because there was no concept of a coordinator, because they themselves were not clear whether they'll launch or not. So they fitted an office next to his and said, "You sit here and coordinate the launch and activities." This was about 3 to 4 months before the actual launch. So almost every second day, third day, Dr. Abdul Kalam used to come and sit across the table. It was a sparse table where we didn't have even water to drink, but that was not the problem. But we used to sit and talk. What happened? What's not going on? What's everything? And then in the course of that, he used to ask me. Slowly, he got to know me better. And then he came to know that I was preparing for the Defence Services Staff College. Then he was so inquisitive, he said, "What do you do in the Defence Services Staff College entrance exam?" I told him we had to appear for 6 papers, right? And that's quite a bit. And he took a lot of interest in what I was doing. And then, of course, we went through the Agni 1 launch, successful. And then I continued back in Prithvi, and I was in charge of the Prithvi operations. So I spent about 3 months in Shar, Shrikota. Now it's called Satish Dhawan Space Launch Center. So I spent those days, organizing everything to do with the Prithvi launch. And he used to come regularly to see what's the progress happening on the whole story, and had a lot of interaction with him. It was one of a period where I learned a lot, because till then I was just an army officer focused on professional growth within the army. This exposure of almost 2 years with DRDL, with luminaries like Dr. Abdul Kalam and General Vijay Sundaram and Dr. V.K. Saraswat just opened my eyes. In fact, Dr. Shivtanu Pillai also used to be there those days, who later established BrahMos for us. So it just opened my eyes and fast forwarded my thinking. Right. Having said that, what are the best thing I remember about Abdul Kalam? I thought he was an outstanding leader, more than anyone else. And when you are serving with him, he was just a director. I used to take orders from him and whatever, and interact and all that, and that was the end of the story. But his true worth I realized later on. Much later, once Dr. Shivtanu Pillai and I were having a discussion somewhere, and the topic veered to Dr. Abdul Kalam. And Dr. Shivtanu Pillai was close to Dr. Abdul Kalam. And I said, "Look, what is special about Abdul Kalam?" He said, "Look, Dr. Abdul Kalam, he was not the best in everything, but he knew almost everything about most of the things to do with the thing. And he had the capability of getting the best to do their best." And that struck a chord, but it remained so. When, it remained at the back of my mind. Much later, I remembered, certain things fell in place. And that takes me back to 1982, World Cup, Belgium. Belgium in the World Cup, made it to the semi-finals.
This is soccer.
Soccer, I'm talking of World Cup soccer. For the first time in 82 or 83, I don't remember. They made it for the first time, they made it to the semi-finals of the World Cup. They lost in the semi-finals. But I think finally they bred Brazil also in that World Cup. And their success was attributed to their captain, Jan Keulemans. If you go to Belgium, you'll find Jan Keulemans' photos and his statues all around. That's what I've been told. I've not been to Belgium to see his, or see his statues. So what's special about Jan Keulemans? Jan Keulemans was an 80% footballer. So you'll say, what is 80% footballer? He was an 80% striker, 80% defender, 80% midfielder, and 80% he would be a winger. That means any positions he was 80% of that. He could play in any position. And that made him a 100% footballer actually. That was the leadership which took the Belgium team to the semi-finals. And when Dr. Shiltanu Pillai told me about that, the first thing which came to my mind was Dr. Abdul Kalam is that 80% man. He knew 80% of propulsion, he knew 80% of navigation, he knew 80% of airframe, structures, everything. But he was not the best at it. But he could get the person who was best at it, talk to him and take him to his best, and then stitch everything up together to make success for the nation. And that was something which I learned in leadership. You should not be the best at everything. You should have the capability of making people be the best at their job. And you should have sufficient knowledge about their jobs so that you make meaning out of it. And that was something fantastic. Of course, like a good army officer, after that tenure, I really didn't keep up with him because he went places, he was far elder, I had my career, all that. And then the last time I met him was when he came to address the National Defence College. I was doing the course out there. My wife and I met him and reminded him of our interaction. But then I think by then the thing had faded from him. But he did remember towards the end. He said, yeah, I remember sitting across your table and talking to you. So that was my interaction with Dr. Abdul Kalam. I thought he was a fantastic man.
Viewers, one of the things you need to remember is India was under sanctions of many kinds during the time India was designing all these things. I was in India, sir, from 89 to 90, and I was in Hyderabad. And I was just there because my wife was waiting for a green card. It was taking about 2 years at that time. Then why not spend 1 year here? So I was in Hyderabad. And I was still an Indian citizen at that point of time. And the DRDL, DMRL, all these people, they had bought some things from the United States or West, but there was a G7 sanctions. And anything they wanted to do with all these things, they couldn't do it. So I could go to any lab there and they'll say, I have these problems. You have worked in the US for a few years. Do you think you can take a crack at it? I had no clue some of the problems, but some I did have a clue. And what I would do was to, like for example, I'll give you, there would be a German CNC machine and there would be an American DEC computer. And between the two, there used to be a software that somebody used to sell so that the data control could be done. And that software was not allowed. Now, the engineers had everything, but they couldn't operate them in the way they were supposed to operate. So I figured out a way, in my own jugaad way. I said, you do this, there are a couple of manual steps, you will get this output, you have to copy paste this into this program, and then you put it on this computer and you let it run. And it did the same thing. Of course, the software would have been more automatic. So I could do things like this. So I know the kind of buzz that was there in DRDO because this is like 89 to 90. I know the buzz. So what makes it so special is SLV1, SLV2, if I remember correct, those were failures. Also remember viewers, I've said this before also, putting a space, something on space is easier than launching it into space. That is something else. Satellite launch vehicle, which is a full form for SLV, that requires you to understand a lot more things. India had space stations, but to launch it there, that was the hard part, because that gave rise to all these other things. And we have to remember, much of that was done indigenously. India did not depend on anybody else. And these are all little things that go up, and then suddenly you see that India is exploding its own nuclear bomb in 1998. All these things are all self-made. India has made a lot of things. People can look at it and be leery, so oh no, but India has figured out a lot of things. That's why today ISRO is a force to reckon with. I just wanted to add that perspective.
No, I understand what you're saying. Look, there are certain fundamental technologies which no one gave us. No one gave us this missile technology. This is completely indigenous. A complete space technology, which what it is today, is indigenous. Third is your atomic energy, right? We got initial help from a lot of people. We got a lot of other things from many people, but the fundamental technologies which we had to crack. Now, it's my belief that if you have these three technologies, which is homegrown, then you are strategically independent to a large extent. And if you see today, it is around these three technologies which are the foundation for our further growth. And that's happening, right? And people say we are not Atmanirbhar in defense and all that. Yeah, to a large extent we are not. But again, what's happened in the past, say 5 to 10 years, maybe 15 years, you see we are independent, or rather full technology we have for shipbuilding. Today we have complete technology for artillery. Then air defense. These three we are through. And so actually in terms of technology, we have a lot. Signals, telecommunication, we've got tremendous technology. And I thought Mr. Manohar Parrikar, did a lot in this field. Though he was, the defense minister for a short time, just 5 years. In my opinion, he was the best defense minister I've known.
So we have kind of smoothly segued into our second person that we are going to talk about, Mr. Manohar Parrikar. We have had conversations offline about what the things that you've gotten accomplished with him. Some things probably can be shared on air.
Yeah, why not?
So I'll yield the floor to you, sir. You've had the honor of working with him, and many things that you've shared with me. I mean, I'll leave it to you, whichever ones you would like to share with our viewers. But viewers, please do watch it till the end. It's a lot of good stuff coming your way. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Manohar Parrikar was Chief Minister of Goa when I first met him. I was the GOC of MGNG area in Bombay. And MGNG is Maharashtra, Gujarat and Goa. Goa was one of the states which was in my jurisdiction. So I went to meet and call on him. And we just had a cup of tea, and that was the time when I was to conduct the Durand Cup in Goa. He helped me, and that was the end of the story. This was in 2014, early 2014. Just after that, the elections took place. Mr. Narendra Modi came to power, the BJP government came to power, and soon I heard that Mr. Manohar Parrikar was to become the defense minister. And he did become, I think somewhere around October, November, if I remember
Right.
He did become. And I became the DG Artillery in October 2014, and I moved to Delhi. He also moved to Delhi. So this was just about a month after I took over my appointment. So one morning I get a call. Look, there's at 9 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, you have to give a presentation to the defense minister on complete artillery procurement. I said, what do I cover? He said, we don't know what you're going to cover. You cover what you want. The defense minister has asked for a presentation on artillery. So I said, okay, we'll go. So I went, gave this presentation. The vice chief was there, deputy chief was there, and everyone was there, and defense secretary, and everyone, of course, we were all under him in any case as Raksha Mantri. So one of the first things he said, I'm very serious about artillery, and I think, we should have good artillery in India. I said, yes, there's no doubt about it. And then, of course, he also made him think, look, till now, it's been 30 years since we got Bofors. We've not got a new gun. I said, yes, I agree with you. What are you doing about it? You're DG Artillery. You've just taken over. I said, okay, let's start. I just had one slide with me. And I put it on. I said, this gives the complete picture of artillery, what the procurements at this point of time are, and what our efforts are for development and indigenization of artillery and everything. He said, okay, let me hear. Others were trying to say something. He says, no, let the DGRT speak. Let him speak. He is the senior most artillery officer, isn't it? Let him speak. So after that, no one spoke. It was one-to-one between him and I. I gave my views out, everything. He heard. And after that, he said, you've given me 7 programs for guns. How much tenure do you have? I said, 2 years. He said, yeah, 2 years is good. In 2 years, what will you achieve? I said, I'll achieve the first 4. Are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure, but I need your help and I need everyone's help. I can't do it alone. He said, yeah, that's given. And then what? I said, more than the guns, I'm interested in ammunition, because India at that time, we were short of ammunition. He said, yeah, whatever it takes to make good that ammunition, we do that. And he said, okay, fine, I'm very clear about the whole thing, but I'm very also clear that for me, artillery is prime for defense of the nation. I mean, I just kept quiet because he was making a statement of fact. And then he turned to the vice chief and said, I want the DGRT to brief me every week. You will come and brief me. And I said, fine, no problems. He says, no, week might be too early, too fast, every month. For every month, you will come and personally brief me. I said, no problems. So he said, the first briefing will start after a week. I said, okay, I'll come go to you. So I went to him. Week later, that same slide which I showed him on one sheet of paper with him, only one column added, progress since the last talk. So I put down progress since the last talk, gave it to him. I said, sir, this is what I showed you. This is the progress which has happened. And I need A, B, C points to be done. And I need your help for it. Leave it to me. So he passed orders. Before the end of the day, all people were there. Yo, give me this file. Yeah, what are you told the defense minister? This has to be done, that has to be done. And everything started moving. And then it became a regular feature. I would get a call between the first, second, third of the month. His secretary used to call me early in the morning. He says, sir, defense minister wants you to meet him. And I used to go and meet him invariably at about 8:30 in the morning. He would be in his office by then. And at that time in Sena Bhavan, not in Sena Bhavan, in South Block, the only people who were there at 8:30 in the morning was the defense minister, his office man who used to open the door and close the door, his secretary, and monkeys. And that's all, because that place was full of monkeys. And at times I used to shoo these monkeys away to get into his office. We used to go, sit down, same procedure, 2 sheets of paper, give him the first sheet with the update of what's happened. And I had the same sheet. We used to sit across the table, talk, and I used to tell him this done, this done, this done, and this done. And that's all. And he never used to even offer me a glass of water, never asked for it. Not even a cup of coffee. 2 years this went on. There was no social interaction, no nothing. It was completely professional to the point. Whatever I wanted, by the end of the day, things moved. Right? There were times when he used to call me at odd times and say, Shankar, what's happening here? Or what's happening there? And what happened to that particular case? Where is it? I heard it's getting into some problem. So he was at it. And I used to, after some time we did become a little easy with each other. Then he would say, look, I'm speaking to you today from Itarsi. I saw this firing here and I wanted your view about it and things like that. So this went on and then the whole thing started. It just took off. Everyone in the ministry also knew that here is a person who's going to deliver things. They were seeing things happening on ground and everything was moving. And the last time I met Mr. Manohar Parrikar was on the day I retired. That was 31st October 2016. I went and met him and said, look, most probably I'll go to join IIT. He said, yeah, good, continue, I will keep in touch. Unfortunately, we couldn't keep in touch and that was the end of the story. And later, of course, he fell ill and he died a premature death. But what did we achieve at the end of 2 years? That when I retired after that, we were on the verge of all decks cleared for the M777 155mm ultralight howitzer deal with USA. Contrary to what many people think, that deal had a lot of technology transfer hidden in it. And that's paying good for us today. So that gun, the Cabinet Committee of Security approved that complete procurement 3 months or 4 months after I retired. But the whole thing was already with them with the CCS. Then the Vajra, K9 Vajra, L&T and Korean combination, right? That also got approved almost simultaneously. That went just about 2-3 months behind the M777. The M777 had a political hue because our relationship with USA was in the upswing. And that deal was very important because it set a lot of things in place for the Indo-US collaboration which you are seeing today. I used to deal with a lot of those people at that time. A lot of those guys today whose names are on paper, they were all younger guys. But they were there, right? And then, so the M777 got a bit of a lead on all this. It did a lot for all of us. It did a lot for the army and the artillery. And then, of course, the K9 Vajra, which just came a month later into the pipeline, and that got ordered. Okay. Then Dhanush. The first regiment of Dhanush was ordered at that time. That trials, everything, a lot of tribulations done and dusted. The fourth gun was a gun called Sharang. Now, Sharang was completely indigenous, which is a 155mm gun mounted on the chassis of a 130mm gun. That final trials also, one of the last things I told him, I said, sir, I've done the final trials. And you'll get one gun out of this. Don't hesitate, just go in for it without thinking. He said, why? I said, it's only 2 crores per gun, as against 20 crores for an ultralight howitzer. He says, that's the difference. I said, yeah, that's the difference. That is also, the good thing is all these 4 guns have entered service. What didn't happen for 30 years before 2016, between 2014 and 2016, when Manohar Parrikar was the defense minister, he enabled it to happen. I mean, without him, let me be very clear, this wouldn't have gone through. Okay, so that went through. Even more important, Pinaka rockets. That was under a lot of problems. So one day again, in one of those interactions, I told him, I said, sir, everyone is giving me why this thing can't be done. I'll tell you why it can be done, why it should be done. He says, no, don't have to tell me why we need Pinaka rockets. We need rockets, we need long range rockets, there's no two ways about it. Tell me how. I said, this is the way. And he made that way. And let me tell you, he gave some out-of-the-box solutions in the next meeting of the Defence Acquisition Council. Today we are reaping the benefits. He also paved the way. He said, I have a method. I told him, look, I'm going to do something to extend the range of Pinakas. He says, do what you want. By then he was fully confident of what I would do. He said, you do what you want, just carry on. So I went to Hyderabad, met the director of RCI at that time, that's the present SA to RM, Dr. Satish Reddy. We sat together, put in a guidance package for the Pinaka. And within 1 year, even before the project was ordered, we were firing that Pinaka. I mean, that was something fantastic. It just tells us that if India has to do a thing, it will do. And if you have the right kind of people at a thing, you can do it. So this was a combined effort of Dr. Parrikar, Mr. Manohar Parrikar, Dr. Satish Reddy and self. We put that through. Today, you have the technology, you have already 10 regiments of Pinaka in service. So, rockets. The third important thing, and I think that's critical, was ammunition. You know, you have to understand this. In 2014, I remember an article in Hindu which said the Indian artillery is an artillery in search of guns without ammunition. That was the headlines. Okay. So I said, look, this is a pretty bad thing to happen. How can India be without ammunition? Because if you don't have ammunition, you can't fight a war. So we worked on it. Then of course, I gave a plan out. At that time, our ammunition levels were low. We had problems in fuses, we had problems in propellants, we had problems in shells and certain other ammunition. So I gave him a plan. He said, just carry on. And whenever there was a bottleneck, I would tell him and he would step in and he would move and things would happen. And I had a tremendous working relationship with him. By the time I retired, things started turning around and they were visible. In fact, they were so visible that around August, September 2016, if you remember, August, when was the Balakot strikes?
Yeah, 2019 I thought.
No. Balakot was in...
Uri was 2016.
2016, yeah.
September.
September. September 2016, we went in across for those first surgical strikes.
Yes.
When we carried out the first surgical strike, there was a situation where it was likely that we could get some reaction from Pakistan. So we took stock of the artillery ammunition. I remember still then the chief and the DGMO and everyone worried, will we have adequate ammunition? Because the thinking was that we didn't have adequate ammunition. But we had worked. We found that we had enough and more was in the pipeline. To the extent, I remember telling late General Bipin Rawat, he was the vice chief and I had known him well. And in fact, we had done high command together, we had done a few postings also together. So one day I went and told him, I said, Bipin, look at this, you have adequate ammunition, don't worry. When that moment with Pakistan went through, and then I explained to him, I said, these are the things I put in place, you just push it through, things will be okay. After that, never spoke of it, nothing. But, important thing, it was 2017 when Doklam happened, India could take the step the way it took in Sikkim
Yes.
and stop the Chinese soldiers from going ahead. That was a delicate time, I thought. And I thought to myself, why is India doing this? India is doing this, we have adequate ammunition to handle Chinese. By then, our stocks had started coming to normal. And by the time 2020 Doklam took place, the way we reacted, the way everything, I knew I had, the fundamentals of ammunition planning was not in place on ground. And the full marks to Mr. Manohar Parrikar for his enablement of this. Of course, it was a combination. Some was imported because you couldn't wait, to make your own. We had to jumpstart something. So some he allowed import, some he pushed for indigenous procurement, some he pushed for indigenous design and development. And all this have come in place at this point of time. I thought, and plus, since I dealt with him and I was in that level, even the Rafale deal wouldn't have come but for him. We wouldn't have had the Rafales today if he was not around. Probably it would have just collapsed and we wouldn't have had them at all. Yeah, a lot of people say, why only 36? You should have had that 110 plus as per the original deal. I look at it this way. He was around, at least we got 36. He was taken off, after that we have not got any. You miss a man when you see that you don't have. We've had 2 defense ministers, 3 defense ministers after that. Very good defense ministers. But that man knew. He knew how to make things happen. Well, I'm not saying that these defense ministers were not good. Like Rajnath ji is very good. So was Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman. But on a comparative scale, and late Mr. Arun Jaitley was also the defense minister for some time. You compare these people, he stood, head and tall, shoulders above, head and shoulders above the others. Because for the simple reason, he was, after all, an IIT graduate.
Right.
And he knew technology. So anyone from anyone in these places couldn't poodle fake with him. He would catch them. And one thing I've seen, if he came to know that a person was telling the truth and he was sincere about it, after that he would back him completely. And it's not as if I didn't have problems. See, the Ministry of Defense and this whole business of defense planning and acquisition and procurement and development is a bit of a snake pit. You could get bitten anywhere if you put your hand into it. So I had my tribulations there, severe tribulations. Like people were gunning for me, a lot of letters, all that. So I used to tell him, look, today this letter has come against me and this is what it is. Right? This is the thing. And after that, you take a call. And he used to say, okay, I'll take a call. Don't worry, you leave it to me. And under other conditions, probably I would have been sacked. But with him, because he was confident that I will deliver, things happened well. So, and also the fact that I remember I had a lot of projects going simultaneously. 7 projects, major gun projects, and ammunition and rockets and missiles and BrahMos, everything. So I remember one person saying, look, Shankar, why are you handling so many projects simultaneously? Because the tendency till then was one big project was great, So that itself was high risk. I said, look, it's very simple. You have to do it for the nation. He said, look, if you try so much, your head will get cut. I said, I have only one head. It can get cut only once. The second time won't happen. Right? Either I succeed or I go. It doesn't matter. And thanks to Mr. Manohar Parrikar and his backing, we succeeded. End of story.
Viewers, what you saw was, how India grows. It depends upon a few good men, and that is a very important takeaway here. Also, many of you will comment on P. Guru's videos in a well-intentioned way. Why aren't we going and striking Pakistan back for something that they do across the border here? There's a lot of planning that goes into it, because you need to not only plan for your retribution, but the counter retribution that's going to come. You have to be prepared for that, 4 or 5 steps. Unless you do all that, you can't just jump in. Some do it, and then they hope to somehow avoid the backlash, but they're not very successful. So I hope you all watched it till the end. There is a tendency to flip across. There are a lot of life lessons that you can get from this. And combine this with yesterday's address that Annamalai gave about the impact of artificial intelligence in IIT Madras. There's a message here. The ministers going forward for India have to be very, very good. Just because you happen to be a political leader doesn't entitle you to become a minister, because a good person at a good spot can create wonders, work miracles. That's the takeaway here. General Ravi Shankar, I don't know, it was a fascinating conversation. I love to listen to all the things that you've shared with our viewers, and hopefully this will encourage them to go and listen to Ganesh. By the way, sir, I listen to many of the conversations and I listen end to end.
Okay.
I'm not one of those fast forward guys. I make time and then I listen to it, because there is so much information, and if you are really serious, sometimes I even go back to understand what you said, to try to make sense of it. That is what it is. You need to, at my age I can do it. Some of you are half, maybe even less than that of my age. No excuses. That is how you become good at what you do. Thank you once again, General Ravi Shankar.
Welcome.
And viewers, like, share and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.